Welcome back. For those of you who are following along, you'll probably realize we're not in Hartford anymore. I turned off the camera to save a little battery for our trip back to Skylark. We're holding short of runway 27 for our flight school Cessna on final. This poor student was really getting beat up by the turbulence, and you could hear how frustrated he was on the radio. Stick with it, my friend. Your landings look good from here. Navigating to Windham from Hartford is just as easy as the other routes we've flown today. Here, let's have a look at the map and I'll show you. Taking off from runway 2 at Brainerd, fly straight out and make a right turn over I-84. Ahead there's a split to I-384 to the southeast. Just follow that right to the end. Holding that heading for a little bit longer will put you right to Windham. Use Yukon and what I call Sock Lake on the left of your course for reference. Why Sock Lake? Well, it looks like a sock from the air. If you know the actual name of the body of water, let me know. Departing runway 27 at Windham. Fly runway heading until reaching a safe altitude. Then make about a 30-degree right turn. Keep Yukon off your right wing and Sock Lake off your left. This will get you headed back towards Skylark. A note on the runway in use at Windham. Pilots get lulled into using runway 27 all the time because it's usually headed into the wind. On days where after a frontal passage, the wind may be coming out of the south or out of the north. This means runway 27 will be at a substantial crosswind and runway 1836 will be more desirable. Pay attention. Don't just do things because this is how they always go most of the time. Let's take a second and review our route of flight. After departure from Windham, slight right turn to keep Yukon off the right and Sock Lake off the left. On this heading, I-84 should appear on the horizon. If you fly right to that, start your descent under Bradley Shelf. I usually like to be at 1500 under the shelf. And then look for a white church steeple in Ellington and then a white barn that's somewhere between Ellington and Skylark. This is the arrival route that I use when I'm coming from Windham, Westerly, Block Island, anything out this way. There's Sock Lake off the left. I'm going to skip ahead to our next landmark. There's a lot of straight and level flying here, and we have a headwind, so it's taking a little longer than I expected. Now's a good time to listen to Bradley ATIS, just to get a current weather and altimeter setting, and to figure out what the winds are doing. From this direction, we won't be crossing any of the approach paths, so the runway in use is not much of a concern. Ahead of us, I-84 snakes through the ridgeline near Rockville. Schnipset Lake is off to the right on top of the ridge. Keep the entirety of the lake off your right wing and descend to 1500 to get under Bradley's outer shelf. This keeps us away from the traffic and jumpers at Ellington. I'm adjusting the camera so you can see the next landmark. I'm not sure if it helped very much. All it really did was show you more of the interior paneling of the airplane. Under the shelf, we can look for the white church in downtown Ellington. That's typically what pilots use to make their downwind to base turn to runway 1 at Ellington. Make sure you stay south of that. A little further ahead, there's a big white barn, almost looks like a tent, that really sticks out. Make a right turn northbound and fly straight to it. One of my instructors once told me that when you're flying into little airports like Skylark, you don't look for the airport. You look for everything that's around it. In our case, if you fly right to the white barn and look off to the west, you'll be looking right down the runway at Skylark. There it is. Let's make a left turn to the upwind. I always start my traffic pattern into runway 28 on the upwind leg. With our cookie cut into Bradley's airspace, there really isn't a good way to enter the downwind on the 45 unless you're coming from that direction and have been talking to Bradley. Making a U-turn on the south side of the airport isn't good practice, and I strongly encourage pilots approaching Skylark to enter on the upwind for 28 or the downwind to 10. I firmly believe that this is safer, but if anyone disagrees, I'd gladly debate the issue. Base to final to home sweet Skylark. Thanks for tagging along today for our tour of the Connecticut River Valley. See, you really don't need your iPad or a Garmin 650 to get around. Use this technology for situational awareness, but be sure to keep your eyes primarily outside of the cockpit. Regardless of where you're flying, spend some time with a sectional chart, even if it is an electronic version. Identify landmarks that denote airspace boundaries and your route of flight. If possible, be familiar with the local approach paths used by the big airplanes, and please call for flight follow-up. It's a great system that our tax dollars pay for and keeps everyone much safer. If you have questions or comments, please leave me a note in the comments. Blue skies and keep the shiny side up.